Welcome everyone to the Wake County GOP Veterans Forum tonight, Town Hall, hosted by Trump Victory for Veterans in North Carolina, Wake County GOP, and Swain for Congress. I would like to thank all of you for attending. I think this is a great opportunity to get to meet the candidates within Wake County who are running not only at the county commissioner level for the state, House, and Senate for our General Assembly, and myself also for Congressional District 2 for House of Representatives. So I'd like to hand it off right now to Mr. Matt Dula, who's in charge of Trump Victory for Veterans in North Carolina.
Thanks, Alan. And thanks everybody for tuning in. We have a really unique opportunity here for you guys to come and meet and greet with some of the veterans who are running for office in Wake County. I'm with the Trump Victory Veterans Coalition here in North Carolina, and we're very pleased to be able to partner up with Alan Swain and the Wake GOP to present these candidates to you so you can get to know the veterans and what they're doing for civic duty and what they're doing specifically in Wake County. So we're going to open this up with asking our panelists a couple of questions. We're going to start with Steve Hale. And Steve, what are you running for and in what district?
I'm running for Wake County Commissioner in District 3, but we're running at large, although we represent chosen by districts.
All right, Steve. And what was your service?
The U.S. Army. Served in Europe during the Cold War in counterintelligence, investigating the Warsaw Pact countries' efforts to gain intelligence on our mobilization plans for in case of World War III.
And how long were you in for, sir?
4 years, 4.5 years.
All right. So why are you running?
I'm running in because of the history of spending in Wake County. The current panel of commissioners have raised taxes for the last 5 years. They've borrowed $2.5 billion, $295 million in payments, annual payments. $98 million of that is interest. The commissioners were considering raising taxes or borrowing another $600 million this year, but the COVID virus interrupted that plan. But spending and debt, county growth, sure.
Yes, sir. And why do you hold conservative values?
It's mostly physical issues. Again, it's taxes and debt. Right of center mostly, but taxes and debt, and in Wake County, this is zoning issues.
Okay. And do you have any words of advice for current servicemen or women?
Sure. What I would like to say to veterans is we have a common shared experience. Veterans, particularly those that were in the combat arms, learned the manual of arms. They practiced drill and ceremony on the parade field. And veterans recognize one another because of that. I'm sure veterans notice how someone stands, their shoulders are back, their chest is out. They're almost walking in cadence. If you watch someone walking downtown and they turn a corner, they're almost pivoting on the ball of their foot. Veterans sense the common experience of duty and responsibility to one another, our unit, our country. Veterans heard a call to service. Veterans became brothers and sisters of those who also heard that call to service. And so what I say to them now is, I suggest you answer another call to service. Join us. Serve with us again. You have skills and training that only people who have worn that uniform possess. You're masters of organization. You've developed people and communication skills. So what I'm asking veterans and active duty service people now is to join our campaigns, volunteer in our campaigns, or become a candidate yourself. Join us.
Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate you for being on a part of this. We'll move on to our next candidate, Gerard Falzon. What are you running for, sir? I think you're muted, sir.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
My name is Gerard Falzon. I'm a candidate for the North Carolina House of Representatives in District 40, which is Morrisville, Briar Creek, Leesville, Creedmoor, and a little bit of Wake Forest.
Awesome. And what was your service?
Sure. I was in the Army, and I served with 24th Infantry Division, 10th Mountain Division, and a little bit with the New York National Guard, as well as the California National Guard.
All right. And why are you running?
Right. So I'm running because I'm very upset with the gun-free zone laws in our state. I believe that they're very dangerous to our personal security and our properties, and I want to change those laws when I get to the legislature.
All right. And why do you hold conservative values?
Right. Well, conservative values line up with my upbringing as a son of two immigrant parents, and they line up with my Christian theology, and I'm pro-life, I'm pro-Second Amendment, I'm pro-First Amendment. All those Bill of Rights protections line up with my values.
All right, sir. And do you have any words of advice for current service members?
Yes, I do. Maintain your military bearing at all times. Remember your 3 general orders when you're on every day. Work out every day, do your push-ups, do your pull-ups. I keep to the Marine Corps standard for 50 plus males, 18 pull-ups. And remember your values, your military values at all times. Even if you don't wear a uniform, you're still a service member.
All right, sir. Thank you much. All right, moving on to Ron Smith.
Good evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending.
Absolutely, Ron. So what are you running for, sir?
I'm running for the North Carolina House of Representatives, District 34, part of North Raleigh, going up Creedmoor Road past Falls of Noose, and then back down Glenwood Avenue past the mall into 5 Points. It's a interestingly diverse district.
Okay, sir. And what was your service?
I was in the Navy, our nation's premier service. Had the privilege of serving for 21 years. I was a surface warfare officer, which is a fancy name for a ship driver, but I had the privilege of holding command. I also was the Logistics Readiness Center director at the Commander-in-Chief Atlantic Fleet, and all those Haitians and Cubans, 52,843 of them in the mid-90s, were mine. So it's my wife was a Navy nurse, mostly as a reserve officer, but she served on the Comfort. She served in Gitmo, and after 9/11, she was recalled and took care of some of the fellows on this call down at Camp Lejeune. I have a son who's currently a Hawkeye aviator, E2D, and my other son, who I think has called in, was a Special Operations Intel officer with the Dirty Dozen Explosive Ordnance Mobile Unit 12, and he is currently taking a job with the FBI as a counter-intel analyst.
All right, sir. And why are you running?
I'm running to give the folks in 34th District their voice back. The seat was initially hijacked by an appointee, and my opponent apparently is the most arrogant incumbent that no one has heard of. It's time that the folks in our district actually have a voice down on Jones Street.
Gotcha. And why do you hold conservative values?
Well, there's a trite saying that if you're not liberal when you're 20, you don't have a heart, and if you're not conservative by the time you're 40, you don't have a brain. And I can tell you that being pro-life, I have a daughter who's a nurse working trauma and emergency down in Charlotte, and had we taken a different path, that young woman would not be alive today, serving many people. I also believe that conservatives give people a hand up, not necessarily a handout. And we all, as conservatives, we have the opportunity to succeed. Not everybody succeeds. That's part of life, but we all are given the opportunity.
All right, sir. And what words of advice do you have for current service members?
For the women and men currently serving, I say, continue to serve your country. God bless you. You wrote a check with your life to give this great nation and the people of this country, whether you ever have to cash that check or not. But it's the one time in your life that you will be part of something that's bigger than yourself. So when you get out, no matter how much money you make, what other line of work you do, you will never have this opportunity again to work with such a diverse and interesting group of women and men from throughout the nation.
All right, sir, we'll appreciate it. We're going to move on to our next candidate, Scott Populorum.
Hi.
Hey, how are you doing, sir?
Good.
So
My
go
name
right
is
ahead.
Norman. I'm running for District 41.
All right. And what was your service, sir?
I'm glad this is coming up because I hate stolen valor. What I did is I went in for the 2-year college program, and I was a cook. So I did my 2 years and I got out and did some reserve time. But sitting here with some of the guys on this panel, when I would see them in the military, I would snap to and salute because of the things that they had on their shoulders, the decisions they had to make. And I wasn't there. But what I did do as a civilian in 2008, the suicide rate was really high for people coming back. And I got together with a bunch of the veteran groups and we started mobilizing things for the veterans' families and trying to get the soldiers back to debrief them. And then it got really big and then it turned into, an organization called CARTS came up out of Charlotte and to get umbrella, for everybody to get together on that because of the things that we were seeing from the soldiers coming back. So.
Absolutely. So why are you running?
There are a lot of reasons, echoing what Steve said and what the other people have said. It's the Democrats. I'll point to this one thing. I could talk about many. My daughter came back from Mexico. She went to Mexico for Christmas and she had Montezuma revenge. She went to a doctor for a 45-minute consultation. That bill was like $900. They told her that she needed to have a C scan. We went to Wake Med. That was another $12,000 bill. We were there for 3 hours because they told us they were short-staffed. We went in, there were 3 people in a 25-person waiting room. I don't know, but the part of the bill for sitting in the room was $3,700, a brick and mortar room. It's and then what they want to do is they want to take that application and expand Medicaid. And it's just ridiculous. A lot of the things that I see going on that I hope to be able to legislate and change.
All right, sir. And why do you hold conservative values?
Well, I don't think a democracy will work without a conservative person. I don't think that without integrity, a democracy works. It's because it's you vote. You can't have people get in there and lie and stuff like that, or it'll come apart as we see it coming apart.
Right.
I mean, and to get to the core of it, I think the Spirit of Jesus Christ is the life. I think that the Spirit of Jesus Christ is the reason why America grew and became a superpower as it is today.
All right, sir. And what words of advice do you have for current service members?
All people are different. When I was in, this is my advice. Seek the Lord your God with all your heart, your mind, and your strength. And then when you do things, especially in the position that you get into, do it out of the love of your brothers. When you get into situations where you're in a position where you have to defend other people, you do it out of the love of your heart for the people that you're protecting and try and not get into the anger of it.
All right. Well, appreciate that. We're going to move on to our next candidate, Erin Perret. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. What are you running for, ma'am?
I am running for the North Carolina State House in District 37, which is Southern Wake County. So it's Holly Springs, Fuquay Varina, Willow Springs, and a portion of Apex.
All right. And what was your service?
Well, I'm actually a military spouse.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and in a way, I know many military spouses, and in a way they serve too. My husband is an Army Ranger. He's a retired Lieutenant Colonel infantryman in the Army. And so we spent the last 12 years, traveling the country at the behest of the Army. And I've been very involved in family readiness groups and led a few companies in the family readiness group leader capacity during wartime.
All right. And, in some ways, I think that being a military spouse might be just a little bit harder. Because there's a lot more unknown for you than there is for that service member, especially on deployments.
Yes.
Right. So
I always say that the military spouse has a love-hate relationship with the news because when your soldier's gone and you know what they're doing, you see something happen on the news, and oftentimes you wait for that knock at the door and hope it's not going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And that can be challenging. Why are you running?
I'm running because I want to bring leadership to District 37 at the state level. So I
Okay.
think our constituents need a voice at the state level.
All right. And why do you hold conservative values?
Well, I'm running because, based on values, conservative values, because they work. So, I want North Carolina to be the #1 veteran-friendly state. I'm running on pro-growth economy, jobs, pro-wage growth economy. My community here in District 37 is built on a foundation of small businesses. I'm a small business owner. So I'm running to bring that reasonable government accountability, regulatory reform, that pro-growth local economy, those policies, which are conservative policies, to help every person in District 37, whether you're a Democrat, whether you're a Republican, unaffiliated, whatever you are, everyone benefits from those conservative economic policies. I'm running on public safety, and I want to lower the cost of healthcare through free market solutions, and that's what we need, and that's what I look forward to, bringing that perspective to the General Assembly.
All right. And what words of advice would you have for current service members or their spouses?
We are a grateful nation. Your sacrifice is not going unnoticed. And, selfless service is so important. And you're really doing such a great service to your neighbor in our country. And I speak specifically to the spouses. You are the rock. You're not only the rock of your family when deployment happens, but you're the rock of your unit, holding families together, helping solve problems when the soldier's gone. And you really help the soldier do their job best when they know that your family is taken care of back home. And it's like a big family. We all help each other. And for that, we all should be very grateful.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. We're going to move on to our next candidate, Alan Swain. How are you, sir?
How you doing, Matt?
And what are you running for, sir?
Yeah, I'm running for U.S. House of Representatives, Congressional District 2, which is about 2/3 to 3/4 of Wake County, Raleigh, North Carolina.
All right. And what was your service?
I'm a retired Army colonel. I did 26 years in uniform. Kind of following my father's footsteps. My father was U.S. Navy, submarines in the Pacific during World War II. He had 4 children. All 4 of us served in uniform. The other 3 served in the Air Force. I was Army. But in addition to 26 years in uniform, my wife is also retired, 22 years, Lieutenant Colonel in the Army. I flew Apache helicopters, but the time in service was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, trying to set myself up for what I wanted to do with conservative values and moving forward to try and help our country.
All right, sir. And why are you running?
I actually thought after my Army service and then going off and learning how to be a successful small business entrepreneur, I'd come back down here to North Carolina where the tax rates are a little lower than Virginia, but at the same time, a chance to help with 2 of my 3 grandkids. But the 2018 election probably was the straw that broke the camel's back for me when I saw the further gridlock when the Democrats win the House and the speakership. Committees were doing nothing but investigations. We were having all kinds of problems. It was Russia, 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 collusion. Ukraine, then impeach. They weren't doing the jobs they were hired to do and represent their districts, go up there and come together in some bipartisan legislation. None of the bills that are passing out of the House won't see the light of day in the Senate for one reason, because they're not bipartisan. Because the Senate takes 60 to pass any kind of a bill that has any meaning with regard to budget. When the House, just like this last $3 trillion mess that they tried to push through a couple of weeks ago, it was 208 to 199. There is no way that's ever going to see the light of day in the Senate because they're not talking to each other. They're not going across the aisle and try to do some bipartisan legislation. So that failure has pushed me even closer to wanting to run. And when the decision was made, it was pretty simple. And they've validated that since I filed last December with the things that have gone on, finishing up the impeachment and the antics that are going on ever since this COVID crisis hit us.
Right, sir. And why do you hold conservative values?
I think all of us here, every one of these panelists, along with yourself, Matt, and thank you for your Marine service. It's kind of instilled in us for some reason that we want to serve, whether we want to be citizens, soldiers, and that's what I consider us all to be. When you look at how important it was to, and when you're given the opportunity, whether you're a corporal, whether you're a sergeant major, a lieutenant, a captain, all of us have either served in those positions. And when you're given the opportunity to command and make the decisions when you're deployed to be entrusted with the lives of those young men and women that are under your service, conservative values and understanding that war should be our last form of diplomacy, and that's why they consider it to be. It shouldn't be the military's first choice. So maybe those instill conservative values, having grown up in the Far East during the Vietnam War, then seeing some of the unrest that's occurred, it's really critical that we all continue to shine and show our conservative values to make a difference and try and protect our nation and the freedoms we have.
Yes, sir. And do you have any words of advice for current service members? Sure.
I think that every one of the 8 that are showing up here, even you as you're volunteering, you're giving up your time, you're giving up you're giving up, some of you give up your lives just to run for these offices. So I thank every one of us for volunteering, because it takes a special kind of person that wants to serve again. Again, every one of us here has been whether you're the spouse of a service member or a service member, you are what I call a citizen soldier. Every one of us has stepped up to the plate for a second time tonight, or this term, to become a citizen statesman. Now we have to win our races, we have to campaign, and we have to run on conservative values. But those types of issues, those positions that separate us from the left, most of us, I don't think anyone here is more than just right of center. You can't run a Wake County if you're a far right Republican. You have to have conservative values, but you have to understand the needs of both sides. And if we can work together in the middle, and there's several talented people that are going to work in our General Assembly that you're going to see them win in November that are on this panel here, and they're going to bring veterans issues to the forefront to make a difference for our veterans, whether it's the VA, the things we're doing. I think every one of us would say we're pro-military, but I think it needs to be a military we can afford. So I guess the one thing I would tell you, and it goes back to, I think, a quote that was attributed to President Reagan, or someone says it was someone else before. And yes, it had a Marine theme to it, but I'm going to use it as a veteran. Some people go their whole lives trying to decide whether they made a difference in their lives. A veteran does not have that problem, because every one of us was willing to, just like Ron Smith brought up, we were willing to write a blank check to Uncle Sam. And if it came down to it, we're willing to sign that thing off and give our lives for our freedoms. So that'd be my advice. Step in, the water's fine. It might be a little cold when you first get in, but serve your local government, your city, your state, or federal level, but make a difference in your community.
Yes, sir. And we're going to introduce our next panelist, Fred Von Cannon.
Hey everybody, my name is Fred Von Cannon. I am running for the North Carolina House. I'm going to take, Matt, save you a little time here. I'll take them all and try to be a little more efficient.
Yes, sir.
Running from North Carolina House, District 35, Northeastern Wake County, Wake Forest, Bedford, Rollsville, all the way over towards the Nash County corner there. So I am a father of 5, grandfather of 7, husband of Anita, and blessed to be that, blessed to be a child of God. And really, I'm running for one really simple reason, and that is that liberalism is destroying this country. And so I still believe in American greatness. I still believe in American exceptionalism. I still believe our best days are ahead of us. I believe in common sense, in hard work, in personal responsibility. And I think all those have a place in our lives and still have a place in politics. I believe that capitalism and conservatism are the best ways known to man to raise the standard of living. We've done it here, we've done it across the world. And I believe that liberalism and socialism, all they do is destroy. and they've done it everywhere. I believe that as you get bigger government, you get less freedom and liberty. And so I'm for smaller government. I don't think our government was ever designed, intended, drawn up to be the solution to all our problems, the place we should go to look for a referee. It was primarily in place for national defense. And these panelists here, that's what we all signed that paperwork and took the oath for, to defend this country. So, just I think conservatism is about how to best, look at government and the role of the individual. I'm pro-life. I believe in the sanctity of life, and from conception until natural death. If somebody's playing the national anthem, I'm going to be putting my hand over my heart and nothing else. So I think that we're all flawed. We're all sinners. We all live in a fallen world. But I'm not ready to concede that we're all racist and bigoted and homophobic and Islamophobic and misogynist and every other way that the left wants to paint everyone so that they can divide us. And I truly think that's what's going on, and it's easy to see, and the media is complicit in it. And so I'm running because I think that there's a lot at stake. I'm ready to sign up again for service and take the oath to do this. And as far as the comment to people serving, let me tweak that a little bit and take it to the people who are maybe considering serving. And I will tell you this, I signed up as a 19-year-old. I was blessed to serve during the 8 years of Ronald Reagan in the Navy, enlisted and as an officer later on, and enjoyed every minute of it. Don't regret it, never have regretted it for a single second since then. So I would just tell you, it's not for everybody, but if you're qualified and if you're considering it, I would encourage you to do it. It is something, again, I've never regretted. And I will tell you this too, I've run into a lot of people my age. When you get to be 58, you can't join up. And there's a lot of people that are my age or older, older than they could sign up, and really they regret missing that opportunity. If you've got that opportunity and you think that's something you want to do, I'd strongly encourage you to do it.
All right, thank you. Thank you, sir. And our last panelist is going to be Mark Cavaliero.
Hey, Matt. Hey, I'm still trying to figure out if I should be flattered or if I should be insulted by Colonel Swain saying he considers us all to be soldiers. So I'm still trying to work that out in my head. But no, it's great to be here. Certainly very good to be here in this esteemed group of veterans, including yourself, Matt. So thank you for your service. There's just something about serving in the military that just gives you a tremendous amount of pride in your country. And, for all the problems that we have in our nation, the challenges that we have, we're still the absolute best nation that has ever graced the face of this earth. The United States of America is a beacon of freedom and an inspiration really for the whole world. And, I remember that feeling so powerfully when I stood with the other Marines of the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force in the desert of Kuwait in March of 2003, right before the invasion. And at that point, I was a company commander, and I was leading the reserve unit from Greensboro, North Carolina. And we had been recalled to active duty and thrown right into the fight with the tip of the spear, that 1st Marine Expeditionary Force out of Camp Pendleton. At that point, I was a major, but my career had really started 13 years earlier. I joined at 18 when I was, just out of high school, joined as a midshipman in the Naval Midshipman in the ROTC program. And then my career ended 30 years later when I retired from the Marine Corps Reserves as a colonel in 2016. And, in between those years, I had such a great time. I was blessed to just serve around the world and really enjoyed it, all the way from 3rd Marine Division in Okinawa to that 1st Marine Expeditionary Force. In fact, I served with every one of the active duty Marine Expeditionary Forces in the Marine Corps, as well as the Reserve Force. I got to go to Thailand, Korea, above the Arctic Circle in Norway. I did counterterrorism stuff in Cameroon and Africa, and then again served as a company commander. So my service has just really, for me, has been a blessing to me. Enjoyed it, loved it, and it really, to me, highlighted the importance of leadership, of values and of character that you learn in service.
Yes, sir. And why are you running?
Well, I think that goes back to service. I mean, I've got a vision, and especially in the Marine Corps, having vision and that visionary leadership is important. And I believe that with the right leadership, North Carolina's best days are definitely ahead of us. North Carolina's my home. It's where I grew up. It's where I raised a family. Went to school, got married, and I want North Carolina to continue to be the place that I know, a place where future generations can have the opportunity, the freedom for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness that our founding fathers really envisioned for us when they created this country. I've got three main objectives that I really just want to hammer home as a candidate. Number one, we've got to get our economy going again. As a business owner, CEO, 24-year CEO for a technology company, I know exactly how to do that. Number two, as Scott mentioned, healthcare is just ridiculous. The whole healthcare system, I think we've got a problem with healthcare in the cost of healthcare. So I want to do everything possible to reduce the cost of healthcare to make it more accessible for working families. And number three has got to be education, and not just to build a bureaucracy. We don't want to build a bureaucracy just for the sake of having more in the back office. We want to focus on ensuring that every child gets a world-class education. And that's really, those three things are what I really focus on in terms of why I'm running.
All right, sir. And why do you hold conservative values?
It's who I am. I mean, it tracks with my personal values. I remember I was over in Korea, in South Korea, and we had been doing a mission. We'd been down underneath the DMZ and, looking and checking out the caves down there, and came up and looked over into North Korea. And I remember seeing and thinking what a bleak landscape that was. And it's just obvious what socialism and communism does. And I don't want to ever see that happen in the United States.
Sure. And what words of advice do you have for current service members?
Hey, I would just say enjoy your time. First of all, I appreciate it. Appreciate what you're doing. Appreciate your service. Enjoy your time. Make the most of it. Make the most of your opportunities. Enjoy your time with your friends, because, once you're out, every day you'll think, wow, I wish I had the opportunity to go back.
Absolutely. I have that same sentiment. So that concludes all the panelists. So I wanted to thank you all for being a part of this. It's a unique situation where we can get all of us in the same Zoom room and broadcast this out state and nationwide, and record it so we can go back and watch it again if we wanted to. I'm going to get into a couple of questions that we have for you as the candidates from the Trump victory side of the House. So if anybody would like to answer this, please raise your hand or buzz it up. How has the Trump administration or President Trump helped veterans across this country and this state? Ron, if you would, sir.
For starters, the president has led the charge, and in concert with Congress submitting the budget to the Department of Veterans Affairs, that is the largest budget to date, not to waste tax dollars money, but to actually take care of the women and men who are so much in need. As many people on this call know, our veterans are dying at a rate of 20 to 22 per day, and they're not old grizzled Vietnam vets. They're youngsters that Mark led, or I led, or Fred did, that came out of the sandbox, and they're coming out of the sandbox, and they can't fit back into society. And the bureaucracy has gotten so bloated that they're not getting their opportunity. So the president sometimes he's kicking over a few rice bowls, and sometimes he's annoying 80% of the mainstream press, but he's getting results, and he's at least getting the doors open so that our women and men get the opportunity to be treated for the problems that they have.
Absolutely, sir. And Scott, did you have something?
Yeah, I think what he's done with the VA, where he's opened it up, where he can change people out that aren't doing their job properly, so that people can be served, and putting in there that people could choose if they had to wait in the line too long to get health care elsewhere. I think that's a very phenomenal thing.
Absolutely. And yes, Mark.
Yeah, I've got something, and I think it really goes for me is important because it reminds me of when I joined. I joined in 1986, and I had been through the years when being a part of the military. I remember growing up, being a part of the military was something that wasn't really appreciated. And when Reagan's administration came in, they changed all that. And I think that having Republican administrations have given veterans and folks in the military more pride in being a part of the military. And I think that's so important for folks coming out to feel like they're valued and appreciated. I know I certainly have, and I know it really helps to have an administration that that really does things to help veterans, from mental health issues to getting the VA squared away. That really helps. But I think the big thing for me is just a mindset that, hey, somebody appreciates us. The administration is behind us. They're setting up the budgets so that it brings back pride in being part of the military again.
Absolutely. And Alan, did you have something on that question?
Yeah, Matt, the only thing I'd add or echo what everyone else has said, the support to the VA and the things that President Trump is trying to do are phenomenal. We've got a long way to go. If you don't think that the VA is a good example of what Medicare for all might be for our nation, we've got a lot of cleaning up. Let's fix the VA first so we can figure out what lessons we can be learned if we're going to extrapolate some of that to more of our U.S. population, because we've still got a long way to go. There's a lot of veterans, a lot of concerns about the mental health disorders and the number of veterans that are committing suicide on a daily basis. But going back to what Mark said, we are showing ourselves as a strong nation with a strong military. The growth within the defense budget, we probably need to do a better job, and even President Trump would say, with our contracting and him trying to negotiate directly with some of the company CEOs that are making the billions of dollars out of our defense budget. But the people need to believe that we're a strong nation when it comes to a military defense. When you look at our defense budget, and then you take the next 10 countries behind us, they still don't equal what we spend or what we're budgeting every year. Those are all big, strong points. The problem is everyone relies on the U.S. to do everything. Look at the problems we've had with NATO and them not stepping up to 2% of their GDP. Problems we're having now with the country of Germany, who several of us have been stationed in the country of Germany or traveled through there. Beautiful country, beautiful people, but their government is spending money on progressive agendas and not spending money on their defense because they expect the U.S. to be there. Burden sharing is called one thing, but holding up our allies to be held accountable, whether it's South Korea, Japan, or our European allies. The Brits seem to be with us. We just need to get more people to convince them that those kinds of initiatives, when President Trump says America first, he means that we're going to make the decisions that benefit the American people, but he still has our allies' interests at heart. The problem is someone else needs to step up to the plate and support what we're trying to do also.
Yes, sir. My second question is what special traits in the experience realm, the quality realm, the quantity realm, lessons learned after actions, do you believe veterans bring to the table when they serve in office? Scott, would you like to go, sir?
I think that when you grow up and you go out and you get a job or you do this, you do that, life is kind of how can you say it? You're protected. You're kind of everything is kind of you're in this place for protection. But when you get out and you're like in a combat zone, like some of these guys have been in, or when I was in, they brought over the nuclear weapons in Germany, and everything was really real. And it wakes you up. It wakes you up to what's going on around you. And I think that a veteran in office has got a more reality, and this might not be the right term, but an aggressive demeanor to change the things that are real. Whereas just staying with the status quo and the comfort, they just, you can't do that.
All right.
Did that make sense?
Absolutely, Scott. Yes, sir. And Ron?
A veteran brings discipline, skill, maturity, diligence, reliability. Doesn't mean that people who are not veterans don't possess that. But this service, the armed services, all 5 of us, and I'll include our brothers and sisters in the Coast Guard, it's the only organization left in this world, with perhaps maybe the clergy, that's a meritocracy. It is the only, and I want to address this because of what's going on in the past couple of weeks. It's the only organization in the United States, if not the world, where a white man or a white woman can and is routinely bossed around by a black or brown man or woman. It doesn't matter what the color of your skin is. If that DI, if that drill instructor is wearing a Smokey Bear hat, it doesn't matter what color they are. They are the drill instructor. It doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman. You look at what's on the bottom of their sleeve in the Premier Service in the Navy, or you look at what's on someone's collar or on their shoulder boards, and it's pretty easy on who salutes whom. It is, and people earn their rank and their advancement, and it's not a matter of, well, seniority, so I'm going to get it. I get a bigger check now because I've been here for 2 or 4 years.
Right. Aaron, did you have something?
I just wanted to talk about what I've noticed with the soldiers that I've known, and that is skills, but discipline and dedication. And I think going a little bit beyond what maybe the standard is, but going a little bit further than that. And I've seen that as a common trait with a lot of service men and women that I've known over the years. But I did want to touch on one aspect from the family side and the spouse side, is that, you know, a lot of military spouses, they put their careers on hold for years and years, sometimes decades. And I know that that's hard for some folks because they travel so frequently to get a job, to have a career, something that they've studied in college to become. They have to put that on the back burner to support the family and to be that rock behind the soldier. And I think that being an entrepreneur is a skill that I see a lot of military spouses have or develop over the years. Creativity and trying to make a contribution to society and the workforce in maybe an unconventional way, and they make it work. And it's something that I'm really proud of, and I'm proud to see that.
Absolutely. And Mark, did you have something, sir?
Yeah, just one thing, and I think it really ties in with what Aaron said, but it's, the development of initiative. So much, especially in the Corps, especially in combat arms units, you have to develop initiative because, you get into what's known as the fog of war. You don't always have all the information. You can't just sit back. You've got to take action. You've got to develop the situation. You got to move the situation forward. And I think that probably rubs off on a lot of spouses, that are there. And that's why I think military members veterans make such good business owners because they understand the importance of getting out there, pushing the envelope, pushing forward, developing the situation, showing that enthusiasm and that initiative that makes them successful in the military will make them successful out in the civilian world as well.
Yes, sir. And Alan, did you have something to add on that?
Yeah, everyone's hitting on all the same themes: initiative, discipline, all the things that are ingrained upon us and significant in leadership skills. I'm going to go back to when the COVID crisis starts, because the one thing we've touched around, and that's organization. If you think about during COVID and all the concerns about, well, you need to be organized, you need to be organized. The first thing, even minority leader in the Senate, Schumer, said, get a military guy in charge of this so we can get the organization going. That type of respect over and over in everything we do. The peaceful protests that turned into riots and looting, a lot of the police departments weren't sure how to handle it because of some of their mayors or their governors not giving the right direction and orders, if you want to call it that. But they all said, just bring in the National Guard and they will bring law and order in. Those kinds of traits, when people realize if you need something cleaned up, you need something organized, you need the initiative, you want the discipline, you want the leadership, they call for the military. They call for the military because it's ingrained in every one of us. All of us have been in charge whether it's a family support group, whether it's leading a platoon, leading a squad, leading a company, a battalion, those inherent traits carry over to everything we do, to successful small businesses and things of that nature. Just look at the backgrounds of every person on this screen and look what they've done since they've left the military and made a difference. And that's that organization and leadership skill that comes with every one of us. Something that's just taught to us. Some of us may have had some leadership skills before we started, but we got to practice how to run a unit. And we actually had to deploy with those guys, the young men and women, and make a difference. So I'd say organization and leadership were by far the biggest things for me.
Yes, sir. And Gerard, did you have something to add, sir?
Yeah, I wanted to add that we bring integrity. We're schooled a lot in integrity, and integrity is paramount to us. And also, we're not wealthy as a result of our military career. So I think that one of the positives we bring is a detachment from the love of money. So those two things, I think, are very, very beneficial to our fellow citizens here in North Carolina. Number one, a sense of honor, and number two, a detachment from avarice.
All right, sir. Well, those can conclude my questions. From the Trump Victory Campaign, we appreciate everybody being here, all of your service, and I want to leave with the fact that this week is the National Week of Action and the National Weekend of Action for the Trump Victory Campaign. So if you are a veteran out there and you're listening and you'd like to get engaged, we'd love to have you. We're conducting phone banking and door knocking this weekend, and we're making history by being the first state to conduct phone banking with veteran-specific scripts, allowing veterans to volunteer and call other veterans and ask them and inform them about Trump administration policies that directly affect us. So that's a historical moment for us, and we'd love to have you out there. And with that being said, Alan, do you have any more questions for our panelists?
Yeah, I actually have a couple that came in on the chat room, so I'd kind of like to direct them to a couple of people. And if you guys want to chime in, and this is directed at Aaron specifically. Aaron, while Wayne, your husband, was deployed, lots of times I know how much heartache that is when your spouse leaves and you're not sure when he's going to go and whether he's coming back. Can you give us some examples of some things that happened while you were running some of your family support groups while Wayne was deployed?
Yes, so I was the family readiness group leader for the headquarters company at 1st Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment in Savannah, Georgia, when Wayne was a company commander. And as everyone knows, life doesn't end, the problems don't stop. Family issues, kids, whatever it is, financial, when the guys are gone. We would say the guys are gone because in a Ranger unit it was all guys at the time. But so some examples, I would say health problems tended to be a big ones, pregnancy problems, and injuries, injured soldiers that would come home. We did have a few losses. And, bringing that community of support together was really important. A lot of times we have some young spouses that are recently married, maybe expecting a child, and it's their first time away from where they grew up and they're in a place they don't know. And then the husband takes off for a while. And it's so important for us as leaders in that family support system to really pull them in and make sure that they have the resources that they need, the friendships that they want, and that sense of community, so we can take care of their needs while the soldier is gone. So generally speaking, those were some of the instances that came home, that came about before the guys got back.
Thank you for that. I know how it was like. We were in Germany, and then we further deployed from Germany to Bosnia back in the mid-90s. The gentlemen that stayed back and then caught up with us forward deployed, they said, "Oh, I'd rather be out here, sir, in Bosnia with you any day than put up with what's going on back there with the families and the family support group, because it's a 24/7. I mean, you're deployed, you're in combat or whatever, and Mark can attribute to some of this too. your focus is on your mission, and that's what it is. Take care of your soldiers, take care of your equipment, and let's get ready for combat. The spouses and the people in charge of the family support groups, the readiness groups back in the rear, it's a never ending. There's all kinds of, every day it's a new problem. It's a new situation that's never been solved before, and you have to resolve it if you're in charge or something like that. But my hat's off to anyone that's back in handling the families at home, because as a deployed soldier forward, knowing that there's someone back there helping take care of your family and your loved ones, that goes a long way towards that soldier being focused in on his mission and not having to worry about his family. So I thank you for what you did there. Another question came in here, and I'm going to pass this one off to Fred. If Fred is still ready to answer a big question. Fred, what's probably your biggest lesson learned from your years in the Navy when you were deployed?
Well, just military service, I think in general, we caught some of this from everybody on the last question Matt had, but you know, the military teaches you a lot of things. And as I was thinking through all those answers, just, you know, what we generically call military bearing, just the way you present yourself. And I think probably the biggest thing, you might not think this, you know, as your first choice, is just humility. Once you go to boot camp, or once you go into the service and you go through and you realize it's not all about you. And that's probably one of the best lessons that a young man or young woman could learn in the service, is going through boot camp and understanding that the team is a way more important than you are. And just that humility, subjecting yourself to something bigger than you, I think is probably the biggest thing that I would have taken from the service.
Super. Next question came in for Gerard. Gerard, when you were with the Army, you served in several different posts. What do you think your biggest lesson learned, or incident, or single event in your career out of West Point and serving in the Army that you always point back to as one of the best lessons learned that you received in the Army?
Yeah, that's a great question. We were on an exercise out in the desert in a National Training Center, and we did a night movement, and we got to our objective rally point, maybe, I don't know, 2, 3 in the morning. And when you have a task force, the tanks always get fueled first. And so by the time the infantry vehicles get fueled, it was maybe 4:30 in the morning. And I talked to my sergeants and I asked them, how much fuel did we have in our tanks? They said, oh, maybe 3/4, sir, no problem. We don't need to fuel up. And so I got out of line and out of the fuel, put everybody to sleep. And next day when we got evaluated, that was a hit on me, that you never pass up the opportunity to refuel and rearm, no matter how long you have to wait in line behind the tanks. And so I took that lesson throughout my life. Were my vehicles always ready? It's always maintained, it's always clean. And one of the stanzas of the third stanza of the Ranger Creed, gallantly will I show the world that I'm a specially selected and well-trained soldier. My courtesy to superior officers, neatness of dress, and care of equipment shall set the example for others to follow.
That's a great lesson for all of us in everything we do. Some people love to wait till their tank is less than a quarter full in their car, and then all of a sudden they got to rush somewhere, and guess what they got to do? They got to stop at the gas station. So those kinds of lessons learned. But when you're talking about being ready for combat, that's a critical thing. So it's good that you could learn that at the National Training Center and not have to do that in combat, because that's where people die. So I can attribute several things that happened to me when I was in training too, and that's a great lesson. Scott Popolorum, same question to you. When you were deployed to Europe as a leader, what event in your life probably helped change you as a leader and making a decision while you're in uniform?
I appreciate somebody calling me a leader while I was in the military, but I wasn't. I was a cook. I was a private. Um, but one thing that really, when I went in, I was a kid, and so we did reforgers and RTAPs in Germany, and I can remember. And I forget, who he was or what his rank was, but he said, look, he said, you guys, you're going to move here and you're going to set up and you're going to, feed here, then you're going to move here, you're going to move there. And I think it was like, maybe the second move, it was very difficult to do it. It was, there was a foot of snow on the ground. And I realized that people were depending on me to do my job. It was an experience where people were depending on me, and so I've taken that through my life, that when I get out and I'm doing something, people are depending on me to produce a good product or to have integrity with whatever I do, and that's something that has really resonated through my life. That people, when you get out and you do something, people are depending on you.
That's great. That's still a great lesson. So thank you for that. Ron Smith, this is one's for you. You talked a little about your time at Gitmo. Rather interesting to say, you don't find that many people to say, I was at Gitmo and I had these kind of people I was in charge of. What was it like on a day-to-day basis when you're handling the people that worked underneath you, but also supervising the people that you were guarding? And from that perspective, what has that taught you about the Navy and why it was so important to have the discipline in your unit when you were there at Gitmo?
Taking care of people that are the gray hulls, the Navy ships, or the orange Band-Aid ships, the Coast Guard, literally picking people up out of the water and then dropping them off, having to build shelters, take care of sanitation, feed, have security, addressed everything that most of us have talked about already with all the skills that we needed. It also taught us it wasn't a Navy show. It was a joint operation. We never forgot that the end user of any of the product were people. And whether they were Haitians or they were Cubans, when you have something about as stable as your dining room table, and you put everyone that you love and everything that you own on it and try to get to the horizon, which on a good day is about 5 miles. For those listening, if you're standing on the shoreline on vacation, it's about 5 miles. Think about getting out another 7 or 8 miles in international waters beyond that. We picked people up, we separated them, we took care of them. Army did its part. Air Force did its part. Kind of. But Marine Corps and Navy. 52,000 people have many needs. We learned an awful lot very quickly culturally. The Haitian men, for example, would open up a porta-john and urinate on the ground, but they would use the door as a windscreen. So that was culturally something sensitive that we had to do that. Not to stay on porta-johns, but one more time, red and pink are the color of Voodoo. So the porta-johns were of different colors, and we noticed that the population would not use the red or the pink ones. A second-class CB, an E5, a second-class petty officer, a sergeant, had the idea of breaking them apart and mixing the colors. We did, and that broke the spell. So that part of human needs that doesn't make front page of the paper all the time, but they were realistic lessons of working with people, working with joint services, because we do have our own peculiarities, but remembering at the end of the day that the end product was to take care of people who were fleeing from something that was so oppressive that they risked everything they had. It has helped me in my work with as a contractor with State Department or over in Sub-Saharan Africa or on the Arabian Peninsula. At the end of the day, there's a person that needs help, and the people on this panel have at some point in their lives helped those people.
Okay, thank you. I have one last question. It came in and it's for you, Mark. But before I give you your question, I want to say I was remiss when I was calling everyone soldiers. We have soldiers, sailors, and Marines. I can't say that
Yeah, I'll
enough.
take it as a compliment,
Marines.
Alan.
All right. Well, I kind of think of everyone as a soldier, and that's just me. But here's the question. You're a major company commander, reserve unit out of Greensboro, and you get the word, we're going to the Gulf. What was that like trying to herd those cats of reservists and get them out of their jobs and get them ready to deploy to the Gulf, knowing that some of them may not come back? That must have been an experience you could have written a book on.
Oh yeah, I could write a book about that. It was crazy time, but we were prepared. We knew this was coming. I mean, we kind of felt like with everything going on in the world, I had taken over the previous year. And so I had about 9 months to prepare for this. And so I was working my unit. We tightened things up in terms of discipline, training, standards. When we would come for drill weekends, we scrubbed our rosters very hard. We made sure they had all their shots. We made sure they had all their administrative, their medical, their dental, all their rifle qualifications, their physical qualifications. We got all that out of the way. So when it came time, when we got the order to go, we were ready. And, of course, you're always going to have a few that are going to fall off the side. But for the most part, in the 9 months that I had been the company commander, I had that unit trained and they were ready to go and they were actually motivated about going. So we didn't have a whole lot of foolishness. It was almost a relief by the time we got the deployment orders and it was time to go. My Marines were all about it. They were excited because we were going to be part of the expeditionary unit from Camp Pendleton. I mean, that's like the A team. It's a great group to be with. So by and large, it was a great experience. But just the sheer logistical elements of taking all of our equipment and our weapons and our communications equipment and moving that halfway across the world. The analogy to herding cats definitely applies. It was a challenge, but definitely a great time.
Well, congratulations on your success and the good job you guys did with the first Marine Division. Matt, that kind of ends it from our end from a question standpoint. I want to thank you guys for co-hosting this Trump Victory for veterans in North Carolina, and also thank Wake County GOP for supporting us. Kudos to all of us here running for office, the 8 of us. Steve had to run off to another town hall with his other 3 county commissioners. We'll continue to do these types of events. We're looking to do more with Matt here in North Carolina for veterans throughout this campaign season. We are looking at a couple other Swain for Congress events where we want to run some more town halls, and we'll be inviting all of you as candidates in one form or another. But I do want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for your service. Thank you for running. You're no longer citizen soldiers. We're now all citizen statesmen, or at least we're trying to become one. It's going to be an uphill battle, but I think we're all going to do very well. So please, thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. And let's go out and start campaigning heavy. So from that standpoint, we'll let you know what we're going to do in the future. But thank you all for attending. Take care.
Great. Thanks, Alan.
Thanks.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good night,
everybody.
everybody.